Welcome back to the Ed Morrissey Show podcast. Joining us as always, the Prince of Twitter, the Regent of RedState.com, Andrew Malcolm at Malcolm on Twitter. Andrew, welcome back.
Thank you, sir. It's good to be here. Happy Passover.
Happy Passover to our friends. This will go up on Tuesday, but it will be, today is, or tonight is the beginning of Passover. And so happy Passover to all of our Jewish friends. And certainly hoping that our Jewish friends at places like Columbia University and Yale are going to have a safe Passover. They may be less safe than Israelis in Tel Aviv these days. In fact, I think a lot of them feel that way. They've been chased off a campus at Columbia University. You know, the rabbi there at Columbia University told Jewish students, do not come to the campus. You need to leave because you're not safe here and this school is not going to protect you. And I mean, that's a sad, sad, sad statement, especially coming as it does on Passover.
Yeah, there's no accident that this is happening around this time. It's just.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. I think that there's.
You know, I worked at the New York Times, which is a Jewish institution, basically, for a very long time, and we didn't have those problems in those. Of course, it's a while ago, but we didn't have those problems in those days. Those of us who are not Jewish were called upon to work on Jewish holidays.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and those who were Jewish were usually called upon to work on the Christian holidays too.
No, I was new. But anyway, there was one guy who, this is just a funny story, but there was one guy who had a Jewish sounding name. And every holiday, what do you call his job? Anyway, there was a guy that arranged holidays and the work schedules and all that. So he came around and he said, so you're off on this day. And the guy said, okay, fine. And after about 30 years, he retired. And at his retirement party, he revealed that he was not Jewish. So he had dozens of extra paid holidays. I mean, they didn't ask him, so he didn't answer. They just say, well, you're Jewish, so you can have this day off. He goes, okay.
That's funny. That's what happens when you assume things, right? Is you end up.
Yeah, that's right. And at a journalistic institution. Speaking of which, what about the Columbia Journalism School? Jeez,
right, I mean, Columbia University is in New York City. It is an Ivy League itself anyway, but it has the Columbia School of Journalism, which is supposed to be the gold standard for journalism school.
Oh, wait a minute. Among the gold standard. I went to Northwestern, so
there you go. Okay. I hear there's one at USC, and look, everybody who's
Missouri.
Yeah, there you go. But Columbia is the one, I believe, that has
Pulitzer.
That has the Pulitzer, right? And that's the award that is supposedly the gold standard of journalism in terms of awards, right? It is awarded to people who are supposedly providing the most excellent forms of journalism. And it's very clear that at Columbia, there has been a rising tide of anti-Semitism, which just is erupting in the wake of Hamas's attacks on Israel. And I mean, this is really bad. You have people out there who are blocking Jewish students from walking on campus. There's videos of this. A Columbia University professor named Shai Davidai, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, I believe I am, wanted to hold a counter protest, a sit-in for a counter protest, and Columbia deactivated his ID card. He's a tenured professor. And he's also the one that stood up in the early days of these anti-Semitic protests and said that Jewish students at Columbia were unsafe, and that either Columbia had to do something about it or the government needed to do something about it. It was a very, very famous video. It went all over the place, went viral. This was, I think, like in October, November. I think it was November. So he said they deactivated my card in a video that is going around. We just want to be Jewish on campus. Further videos showed Davidai attempting to enter the campus but being blocked. He had earlier advertised a peaceful sit-in at Columbia's declared liberation zone, inviting followers on X to bring Israeli and American flags. This is how Columbia is supporting open debate on their campus. They're not. They're siding with the intimidation campaigns.
Yeah. You know, I know George Soros is not behind everything bad, but I smell his presence in this in these sorts of things, the blockade on the Golden Gate Bridge and so on. The idea, it's really got nothing to do with Judaism and so on. The idea is to decay American culture and society, and to fray any bonds that hold us together. And that's what they're doing. And rather successfully, the media is going along with it. I understand violent protests are news, but there's a way to cover it, and there's another way to cover it. I mean, there's a way to cover it that incites it and that attracts others and spreads the fear that these demonstrations are supposed to spread.
Yeah. Well, I think it's about both, right?
Yeah.
It's really about demolishing Western civilization, because these people think that Western civilization is a colonial civilization. They're colonizers, they're oppressors, and only the Eastern peoples are legitimate, type of thing. And this is just an extension of that. And that's the reason why they're chanting death to America at the same time that they're chanting death to Israel in Dearbornistan. Right?
Yeah. It's, you wonder why they came here. I mean, they came here, I guess, because they think it's a swell place. Sorry.
It was a swell place.
It was a swell place right now, but they came here to ruin it. And they came here to make it like where they came from. And which is unsafe. So, I want you to stay there. But it is, and it's effective. I mean, some of my feelings have risen, and not about Jews. I worked for them for so many years, but sort of, why are you guys here? Why are you? Well, we just said why they're doing this. Sort of a hostility. It ignites a hostility that I didn't have before, and it's unfortunate, and I suspect I'm not alone in that.
Well, no, I mean, the same here. I mean, I see people blocking roads and stuff like that, and the first thing I'm thinking of is you should have rubber hoses in your car so that you can deal with the situation quickly and forcefully. And I mean, that's not something that I would actually do, but it is an impulse that comes up when I see these things.
I'm beginning to feel a little hostile about you, Morrissey.
Well, I've been trying to revolt against royalty, Mr. Prince of Twitter, for quite some time.
Yeah, that's right. Bless you. I shall turn the other cheek.
Oh, well, there you go. That's good for you. But again, Columbia School of Journalism, and Mark Caputo was the guy who actually raised this. And I put it in my post for today about Joe Biden waiting 6 months to finally say something about the campus intimidation and violence directed at Jews. He waited 6 months to say something about this. I mean, I went and checked the White House website, and this is the first time that Joe Biden has made a statement about campus anti-Semitism. and he buries it in a Passover message. He buries it in the 5th paragraph of a Passover, um,
Yeah.
commemoration. And the 4th paragraph is talking about demanding a ceasefire and a state for the Palestinians. I mean, this is one hell of a it's one hell of a Passover message. Why would that be buried in a Passover message, which is intended for Jewish people?
Yeah, because it was written by non-Jews who have an agenda, and it doesn't offend them to do that. And Biden is clueless to object to it. I mean, I worked for politicians, and a lot of what they say is prepared. It's not always said verbatim, but a lot of the time they want to see it. They want to know. And if there's something in there that they don't like, they delete it, and then they tell you later, "Oh, I don't like that kind of thing." So Biden isn't aware of what he's saying anyway. He just he can't even read what the words are. So, I mean, we're just in such a mess. That was the major point of my column on Sunday, was that he has done and displayed so many signs of weakness and mental decay, physical decay. Okay, fine, but he's old. Old people get physical ailments. I can attest to that. But, geez, the number of times that he has shown, even on international stages, this kind of weakness and vacuousness, and people talk about Trump being transactional. He's in it for politics, and that's it. And it's dangerous, because the world, meaning our adversaries, well, and our allies too, that's got to concern them. They see this weakness, and they want to take advantage, and they've only got 9 months left. So I suspect, October and the Iranian attack and the Red Sea attacks and the pirates and all that, this is not a coincidence. This is getting in before, potentially, there's a new president. And for all of his faults, Trump has a lot of strengths, and one of his strengths is that he's perceived as strong. And part of being perceived as strong is being unpredictable. You don't know whether you want to fool with this guy. Well, you want to fool with Biden because there's nothing. Russia shot down our drone in international airspace. He didn't even say a word. And like you said, in this Passover message, so the signs are there that he doesn't care or doesn't know. And so, hey, they better take their advantage when they can. He let this Ukraine package, he slow walked the ATA-CMS missile system. He slow walked at giving them tanks. He slow walked giving them F-16s. So he can say, well, I did it. But yeah, if he'd done it sooner, it could have been more decisive. Instead, he has helped, with documentation, he has helped create what appears to be a stalemate, or perhaps tipping towards Russia. So we're getting a lot of trouble, and it's not just joking at the fact that he said his mother hadn't been Scranton since 1953. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I wrote this, and I documented many of these, not all, but many of these instances, and showed how weak it is. It's not a coincidence that Putin annexed part of Georgia during the election year in 2008. He annexed Crimea and eastern Ukraine in 2014. And then, 4 years of Trump, he didn't do any of this stuff. And then within 2 months of Biden taking office and Trump leaving, Putin began organizing the troops, assembling the troops for the invasion of Ukraine. Trump said the other day, what was it? It was the Iranian attack on Israel. He said it wouldn't have happened if he had been in office. I don't know that. You can't document that, but there's some credibility to that when you go back
There
and
is
see
credibility to it. Yeah, I
when you
agree.
go back and when you go back and see these gaps when he's around. Clinton, Bush, they were trying to, and the first Bush were trying to get North Korea to the table. Trump did, not because he's a nice guy, but because he had sanctions. He's refused to lift them, unlike Biden, who's been lifting Iranian sanctions all along and Russian. And so Kim came to the table. Well, we haven't really done anything, but the fact that they're talking and meeting and so on. And when he was meeting with Trump all that time, the international or the ICBM tests were suspended that he was making. So, as you say, there is some credible evidence that having a strong guy who diplomatically is unpredictable at times. Now, you don't want that necessarily in NATO, but you know what? His unpredictability in NATO did prompt the allies to start spending more on their defense, as they should have been. And at the end of the column today, and I really recommend this, I'd like everybody to read the whole thing, but at the end, there is a video of the Prime Minister of Albania.
Yes.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
He's 6'7" basketball player on the Albanian team, beautiful English. And he had a news conference. This is 2 months ago. And I have the video and the transcript. He had a news conference with Blinken, who, is part of the Kerry crowd. And he went off subject and started talking about, without mentioning Trump by name, talking about, I'll leave it for people to see. But it's a very clear-minded, intelligent, even eloquent observation on American politics, and on Trump and the fear that media likes to generate that he did not see. So this guy was the leader of Albania in NATO during Trump's time also. And I have to say, as someone who grew up in Albania, there wasn't anything more hardcore communist and Soviet satellite than Albania.
Yeah.
So this is quite a change to have him speaking up about an American president in a clear and I would say unbiased way, not necessarily supporting what he does, but observing the impacts in a positive way.
Yeah. Well, this is by the way, this is Andrew's column titled "U.S. Faces a Far Worse Impact Than Garble from Joe Biden's Mental Decay." So this is a long column, definitely worth the VIP subscription. So be sure to check that out. You have another column up. And so both within a couple of days of each other. And this one I think is interesting because this is actually, it came out about the same time that there was a big news story about Google, right? And it's kind of related to Colombia too. What's going on?
Yeah.
It says, quietly, Google seeks to smother the revenues of conservative media like us, which is true. And we talk about that a lot when we're talking about our VIP program.
And you guys too.
Yeah. And trying to make sure that people understand that, they're using I wouldn't call it a monopoly, but they're using their very large footprint in the advertising world to basically prevent conservative websites and conservative media from being able to gain revenue through advertising, for their work. Now, That's been going on for a few years. It's really, especially during the pandemic and during the 2020 election. And that's part of what the Twitter files exposed, and we'll see where that goes. But it's still going on. They're still demonetizing certain things that we do, and especially when it relates to COVID, it's still to this day they're demonetizing posts where that's being discussed.
And Hunter's laptop.
Although I think they've stopped demonetizing those stories because it turned out to be true. But here's the thing though. And this is a question I got to ask you, because everything you wrote is accurate, right? Everything you wrote in that piece is accurate. It's true. It's ongoing, still ongoing to this day. But something happened at Google last week. And I'm wondering if you think that this might be a turning point for this, which is that they had a couple of dozen, more than a couple of dozen, several dozen of their employees seize control of executive offices to demand that Google cancel its contract with the Israeli government on something called Project Nimbus, which is it's not a defense program. It's some sort of a government program, right? And they're dealing with the Israeli government. Anyway, the employees have been objecting to this for a couple of years. It's been around for a bit. And then after the war started, they got very vocal about it, and then culminating in this sit-in thing that they're doing. And in response to this, Google called the police and had them all arrested and fired 28 of them. Saying, I don't know where you thought that you were going to be able to get away with this, but that ain't flying here, which actually kind of stunned me, because Google's been on the far left of everything for 20 years. And all of a sudden, they kind of don't like it when these activist interventions are applied to themselves. So first off, tell me what you think about what I think is a great decision to fire these guys and to press charges against them. Yeah. But do you think it's going to change their approach to this stuff?
It might be cautionary for some of the others who were tempted to join. And what's the word? It's
at least that. It's at least cautionary. When I was in management in corporate America, it was a pretty common management philosophy that if you had a group of people that just simply weren't responding to, management, that generally and that were creating trouble for you, generally you only needed to fire one person, maybe two, or everybody else got the message. So yeah, 28 is,
yeah. Well, it's like an infection.
Yeah.
What's it? Fire 28 to slow what was it? 2 weeks to to flatten the curve. Fire 28 to flatten the curve. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it makes eminent sense. And absolutely. What's strange is that it sticks out. There was a time not so long ago where things would happen that made sense, and you go, yeah, right, of course. And now it's like, holy smokes, that's sensible. Wow, what's going on here? Yeah, I don't know if it's turning a corner or not, but it certainly is helpful. And like you say, cautionary. I just wish it was wider. I mean, you see, we had a post today that I haven't finished reading yet, but the student that got demoted with perfect grades.
Equity grading. Equity grading.
Equity grading. Yeah. And remember that, was it last year that we found out about the Virginia high schools that didn't tell so many national honor students that they got national honor?
That's right. Yeah.
Which is thousands of dollars in scholarship that they denied these kids because they didn't want the non-working kids to or non-achieving kids to feel bad. Yeah. So everybody gets a trophy, but it's plastic. Yeah.
So one thing that, first off, I got to say that the Blaze actually had an interesting headline that I actually disagreed with. I popped it in our headlines anyway, because it was, they also had a lot of fun takes, but they said that Google sends a message to 28 employees. And my argument was, they didn't send a message to 28 employees. They sent a message to 180,000 employees.
Yeah.
The people they fired, they fired them. They don't need to send those guys any messages. The message was actually sent to everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the way it's supposed to work. You know,
Well,
that's called setting the pricing. That's called setting a pricing signal. If you want to pull this kind of stunt, the price is going to be your career.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I'll have a party over it, but it is encouraging.
Yeah, no, I don't like people getting fired, but then again, I also don't like people.
I don't care. I don't care if they're pulling that crap. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
go away. I don't even have Google stock, and I'm happy for them.
Yeah, well, I use Gmail. So I'm the product. You know, I'm not the customer. I'm the product. But you know, this is of a piece of something else and something broader. It speaks to what's going on at Columbia and Yale and Harvard and Penn and the rest MIT. The rest of these elite institutions is that the inmates are running the asylum in these places.
Yeah.
And when they get out, they think that they can run the entire world. And I give you the example. I don't think we had a chance to talk about this yet. I can't recall if we talked about it last week. But did you see the video of this woman who got up at a Bakersfield City Council meeting? And so this woman gets up and she's a hard leftist. And she's spouting all the shibboleths, you know, and all this kind of stuff and doing all the slogans and telling these. What happened was that the Bakersfield City Council, you know, Bakersfield, we're both from California.
I lived near Bakersfield. I used to.
Well, Bakersfield is culturally much different than coastal California, right?
Yes.
I'm not saying it's rock red conservatism there, but it isn't nutcase progressivism either. It's a industrial rural sort of blend area. It's different, you know, it's different than the rest of California.
Country music, Buck Owens.
Absolutely. You know, it's sort of the Central Valley. It's got sort of the Central Valley ethos and culture, right? And if you're from California, this is one of those if you know things. If you've been there, if you've lived there, you understand the difference. So for some reason, somebody proposed that the Bakersfield City Council pass a resolution demanding a ceasefire in Gaza. I can't think of anything more useless.
Nuclear free zone. Yeah.
Bakersfield weighing in on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but it was there. Somebody proposed it, and they were having public comments on it. So this one woman whose last name was Patel, I forget what her first name was, is apparently a crank that shows up to a lot of these city council meetings. And she got up twice during this meeting. The first time she got up to excoriate them all. You're all horrible people. She said, if Jesus was here, he'd murder you himself. I mean, you know, right? Yeah. So, you know, this is...
Well, she's been missing from Bible study.
Apparently, you know, you might want to check the version of the gospel. I think maybe there's a misprint, and I mean, it's this, but this is the stupidity. This is the
stupidity. That's the word. Yeah, capital S.
Clearly, a product of the elite academic institutions. And she stomps off the first time. Then she comes back up to do a second comment. And this was her big mistake. Because she gets up and she decides that she needs to ramp up the rhetoric. And she says at the end of her comments, she says, we are going to find you in your houses and we're going to murder you.
Oh, yeah.
And there's, I don't know, 9 city council members there, right? So she goes back to sit down. They announce the next 3 commenters to come to the dais, right? So they can offer their comments on this to the city council. And the mayor says, oh, by the way, Ms. Patel, that was a threat. And the officers over there are going to be dealing with it. And they took her out, and she's now facing 18 felony counts of terrorist threats and threats to murder public officials, which will land her about 30 years in prison. And so the next video you have of her is at her arraignment, where she's sobbing. And at a certain level, I don't even blame her, right? I blame the academic institutions that told her that she could go off and do this stuff with, and that It would
And
be
the
totally fine.
and the media institutions that spread it approvingly. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah. Well, it's California. She'll be out on a $10 bail, and then they'll drop it when the
not
hullabaloo starts.
Bakersfield. You got a
I hope so. I hope so. And
$2
once again,
million bill.
right, this is a sign to others who might be tempted to be as stupid and to control themselves. I mean, this is the way, when I misbehaved once, it wasn't a big deal, but it was rude and crass. And my father took me aside quietly, and he knelt or crouched down in front of me and looked me in the eyes, and he said, "We don't do that." And here I am all those years later thinking, oh, okay. And I never did it again. And I put it in a category. So I never did that kind of thing again. Even if I was tempted at a baseball game to shout something crude, no, because we don't do that. And it's nice to see a city council or any institution react this way because it helps curb this kind of outlandish stupidity and curb others from doing the same and discourage others from doing the same.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
I hope.
I mean, there are no pricing signals on this behavior right now. In fact,
Right.
in Columbia, there still aren't any pricing signals because they've closed the campus and doing nothing but remote classes now. And so the
it works. It worked.
It worked.
It worked.
They got
and
what they
right. Soros can hire a crowd somewhere else now.
Yeah. I mean, again, just crazy time. All right. Well, you got to go over and read Andrew's 2 columns, right? Quietly, Google seeks to smother the revenues of conservative media like us. I don't think that they're going to necessarily back out of the censorship club over there at Google, but I do think they're going to have some second thoughts about how they exercise this control after this, or maybe not. We'll see. But clearly, they hit the end of the rope with their employees, and their employees are now going to.
Well, yeah, and it's like New York City or the other sanctuary places going, oh, we're sanctuaries, until they are treated like sanctuaries and go, oh, wait a minute, this is outrageous. Yeah, it is. But you invited these illegals to come and settle here in hundreds of thousands, and so handle it.
Handle it. All right. And of course, the other column is the U.S. faces a far worse impact than garble from Joe Biden's mental decay. So you can check that out as well. I guess we're at the jokes of the day.
Yeah, you go. I got nothing.
You got nothing. All right. Well, I got maybe 1 or 2 here for you. So this guy goes to a bar and he's sitting there looking at his drink, and he's just staring at it for a half an hour. And this big truck driving kind of guy has been watching him, and he walks up and he takes the drink and he drinks it down himself. And then the guy at the bar starts crying, and the truck driver says, "Oh, come on, man. I mean, I'm just joking. I'll buy you another drink. I can't stand to see a man cry." He says, No, it's not that. This day is the worst of my life. First, I fall asleep. I go late to my office. My boss fires me. When I leave the building to my car, I find out it's stolen. The police said they can't do anything. I get a cab to come home, and when I leave it, I remember I left my wallet and credit cards there. The cab driver just drives away. So I go home, and when I get there, I find my wife in bed with the gardener. I leave home and came to this bar, and the guy says, "Oh man, I had no idea." He says, "Yeah." He says, "The worst part of it is just when I was thinking about putting an end to my life, you show up and drink my poison." Oops.
Oh, yeah. You want your drink back? Yeah.
So last one is quick. This one's a quick one. It says, my friend bought a bus pass to a nude beach, but it turned out to be a ticket to nowhere. All right. All right, so that's it for our show. That's it for our show this week. Jokesoftheday.net. That's where I like to get that. There's a funny person on Instagram. She's an actress, and she does these hilarious dad joke type things, some of which are R-rated. I'll have to grab a couple of hers because they're quick and they're funny. And the best part of it is her laughing. I think her name is Kimberly Nixon, if I'm not mistaken. I'll try to grab a few of her jokes because
that'd be good. They have some good ones on there.
They do indeed.
Yeah.
Andrew Malcolm, though, is no joke. He is the prince of Twitter, the regent of redstate.com. At AH Malcolm on Twitter. And of course, redstate.com is where you go to find all the stuff that he's doing. Andrew, another fine show this week. We'll be back next week with more.
You bet, folks. See you then.